So today, following the theme of playing or praying from the heart, I wanted to talk about some words by Hisamatsu Fuyo. Now, he was an early Kinko, not modern Kinko, but Kinko from the Edo era player, about 200 years ago in the early 1800s, and he wrote down some of his shakuhachi philosophy. In this case, it's from a collection called Hitorigoto, which is kind of like talking to myself, just his own thoughts, right? And there's a thread of thoughts that he follows that kind of center on Honrai Mu Ichi Motsu, which is a Japanese Zen saying. It's actually from Tang Dynasty China, if we trace its roots back, actually. And that means sort of something like, in truth, it's not a thing, or in truth, there is no thing. Honrai Mu Ichi Motsu. So we're going to kind of dig into what he's talking about there. So Hisamatsu Fuyo's thought follows this thread starting from here. There's the first thing that he says is, there are those who think that the essence of bamboo sound is melancholic, sorrowful, and serene. This is ridiculous or laughable, right? There are those who think the essence of bamboo sound is melancholic, sorrowful, and serene. This is ridiculous. So he's saying that this is not something that is at the very essence, and this is just what he's saying, right? This is not the essence of bamboo sound. Some people have this idea that, shakuhachi is kind of meditation music or relaxation music, and he's kind of saying, well, no, it's something a little bit different, and it isn't for playing to make people relax or bring them into kind of a slow something, right? It's something a little bit different. So this is the next thing that he says. Playing the shakuhachi is fundamentally not for letting others hear. It's a tool for refining your own mind. And I would agree with that as well. It's not a performance. It's not for entertainment, although there's nothing wrong with using it that way. It's just that that's not, even if you are doing that, that's not, especially for somebody like him or like myself, that's not the main purpose that we're using for it, right? It's not to criticize. It's just saying like, well, that's what I'm doing. Maybe he was criticizing. I'm not, okay? It's a tool for refining your own mind. So again, this is something that Yamada Sensei's teacher also said, and that my other teacher, Suiko Sensei, would emphasize as well. It's not an uncommon sentiment in the Myoan or kind of Fuke shakuhachi world. It's not something to entertain other people. It's something for yourself, or maybe something to play with a friend, right? That's Dr. Yamada's teacher liked to say, that it's something that you play together with friends, but it's not for entertainment, right? Both of those are good things, I think. So he continues, Hisamatsu Fuyo, and he says, for those who reach the state of, in truth, not a thing, right? For those who reach the state of Honrai Mu Ichi Motsu, if the listener finds it sorrowful, it becomes even more sorrowful. If they find it joyful, it becomes even more joyful. All right, so what's that about? It took me a while to get to like what he's really saying. So I want to bring you through the journey together with me. All right, so again, those who reach the state of Honrai Mu Ichi Motsu, those who reach the state of, in truth, it's not a thing. If the listener finds it sorrowful, it becomes even more sorrowful. And if joyful, even more joyful. All right, so I'm going to bring you back into Tang Dynasty China, where this phrase, Honrai Mu Ichi Motsu, actually came from. So we can kind of dig into what it actually means. So there is a sutra called the Platform Sutra of the Sixth Patriarch, right, of Chinese Zen. There was Bodhidharma, who was considered the first, and then goes on through, and then the fifth patriarch was named Huineng. Oh, I'm sorry, not Huineng, that's the sixth. The fifth was named Honran. And Honran had sort of a monastery that he was running, and he had some students there. And he was getting older, and he knew that it was kind of time to pass on the robe and bowl, the symbols of the being the leader of Zen, I suppose. And he was ready to pass that on to the next person. So he wanted his students to show their enlightenment or show their understanding. That's what enlightenment means, right? Satori means understanding. And by the way, that the character for it is a pictograph of a heart or mind and myself, right? My mind. It means you've seen your mind. You know who you are. That's an aspect of it anyway. And he said, so, okay, let's see if any of my students have gotten it or not. So everybody, please write a poem to show your understanding. Now, nobody wants to write one because it was like, I don't know, you're going to do it? I'm not going to do it. You're going to do it? I'm not going to do it. It's like if you've ever taught a class, it's kind of like teaching a class of people because it was like, I don't know. And the head monk, though, was kind of expected to be the one to do this. So it's like, but, I'm not ready. I don't know either. His name was Shan Xiu. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong because I don't know Chinese. Although I can read it, I can't pronounce it. So Shan Xiu doesn't really feel like he's ready for it, but everybody is kind of pressuring him. Somebody has to do something. He doesn't want his teacher to feel bad. So like, all right, I'll do what I can. I'll write something. So, in the public hall, he writes this poem, which I'm going to translate very woodenly. The body is a Bodhi tree. The mind is a bright mirror stand. Always strive to wipe it clean, lest it attract dust and dirt. All right, so the body is a Bodhi tree. Like Bodhi tree is the symbol of enlightenment. So, right. So the body is where enlightenment happens. The mind is a bright mirror stand. Right? So it should be reflecting the light unhindered. Right. Always strive to wipe it clean, lest it attract dust and dirt. So he sees that the mind has a tendency not just to become dirty, but actually to attract it. Right. So you've got to wipe that off. Actually not bad, I mean, I kind of agree. Like we have a tendency to go astray, and you do have to be vigilant. All of the the ancient monks in Christianity always talked about kind of watchfulness, watching for Christ. So there's elements of truth in what he's saying. Like I don't think it's a bad poem at all. And I also like Shan Xiu's humility. He's like, I kind of don't know. I like people like that. I really like that. So I like his poem. In Zen, we're seeing like this is supposed to be kind of like the bad one that doesn't get it, but I like people who don't get it. I don't get it either. It's fine. Anyway, though, this didn't completely fit the bill. So what Hongren thought was, again, he's a good teacher too, and he's like, he tells everybody, all the other students, it's like, this is a good example. You should follow it. Like, no harm, no foul. And so like I said, it's not like it's false or something, right? But he also feels like he hasn't seen completely into his true nature. So he doesn't really know what to do. But later that night, kind of in secret, there's this guy from, he's kind of a hillbilly. He's a young guy. Nobody really respects him. He's just been working the rice mill. He's not even an official monk, but his name is Hui-nang. And he writes his own poem as a reply to this one. And he says, Bodhi, or enlightenment, is not really a tree, nor is it a mirror stand. In truth, it's not a thing. So where can this dust be attracted to? Again, Bodhi is not a tree, and it's not a mirror, it's not a stand. In truth, it's not a thing. Right? You could also say, in truth, there is no thing. But in truth, it's not a thing. So where can dust be attracted to? Right? So he kind of just negates everything. Like, no, there's not this, there's not this. In fact, it's not even a thing. So where are you getting this dust from? If there's no thing for dust to land on, it can't. How can it become dirty, right? So this wiping is useless. So how do you understand that? Maybe you don't. That's it. I mean, I remember like kind of Suiko Sensei would say like, you don't need to understand it, just play shakuhachi. That's probably the right answer. But it's fun to discuss things, right? And somebody always comes up, oh, you can't talk about Zen. Like, yeah, but guess what we have about Zen? Thousands and millions of words. You can talk about Zen. Everybody in Zen talked about it. In fact, Dr. Yamada is working on a new book. It's still in process, but about the it was like a grand disciple, I suppose, of Rinzai. His name's Joshu, and his thing was that like you can put it into words. And like his master Nanquan, and he's like, Master, please explain the Dharma in words. And Nanquan does something to show like, oh, you can't put it into words. He's like, yeah, he couldn't do it. Not like I didn't get it, but oh, he couldn't do it. Yeah. So depending on who you are, and really everybody, again, it's just not worshiping words, but we can use words, right? The words themselves are not the truth. You still have to live it. Right? Christians feel the same, all right? So it's not some like deep ephemeral thing. It's just a statement. It's an observation of what's true. So he's saying that the self is not a thing. There's a couple ways to understand that, but maybe for Shakuhachi, the best way to think of it is like the self is not an object, right? And I'll kind of explain what I mean by that. You might have a different understanding. There's many different ways to look at this. You could also look at it as saying like, well, there is no self, right? And if I was to put that from a Christian point of view, it would just be the simple observation that, we talk about two selves. There's the old man, Adam, right? Who is fallen, who has sinned, who is separate from God. And that self, we said the wages of sin is death. So that old self is dead. And you need to not be living like your old self because it's dead. And you could even say like, well, that doesn't even exist anymore because it's dead. This is kind of a way for me to relate to this, right? You have a new self who is reborn in Christ, and it is yourself, but it's also not you. It's Christ living in you. If you do what we call the obedience of faith, right? You're saved through faith, but you also has to change how you live. So if you not only assent in your mind to what's true, but you actually live it, then you have this new self. You have the Holy Spirit living in you. You have a life that is not your own, that is eternal, that doesn't end. And that is you as well, right? So there is a similar kind of metaphysics happening, although it's explained in, to me, a sort of a fuller way in Christianity, but it's you can't say that it's 100% different either. So in truth, it's not a thing. What does this mean for Shakuhachi, right? So if we take it in terms of, well, if we rewind a little bit, look at Shanshiu's poem. His idea is like, okay, you have to take yourself and be watchful. And when something happens, wipe it clean. Now, something that I would say in my observation of myself also is that I kind of can't change myself. I can be changed, but I can't change it. If you try just on your own power, on your own ability to take yourself and change it, it just results in more frustration because you try to wipe it clean and then there's dirt over there. Like, have you ever put smartphone glass on a smartphone? And you can do it successfully, but when you're trying to do it, there's always dust on the smartphone, right? And you wipe it off, and then you lay the glass here, and then you let it kind of slowly go on, but inevitably there's a little piece of dust here, and then you peel it up a little bit and you take it off, and once you've done that, another piece of dust comes on. That's kind of like what looking at yourself does. You clean it here and another one pops up here, right? You're mad at your dad because he was too strict, so you decide, I'm never going to be strict with my kids, and you end up raising jerks because they do whatever they want because you never disciplined them, right? You get rid of this, something else pops up in its place. It just doesn't work. So kind of to me, Huineng was saying, you can't fix yourself. And I would agree with that. I know I'm saying something a little bit different here, but the idea is that what the function of prayer is that rather than trying to fix yourself, you just show yourself exactly as you are. And you say, God, this is me. So what are we going to do about it? Right? And he gives you a new self. Instead of living that old dead self, you have something completely new to live out if you'll just listen to his voice. And that changes things, right? So with Shakuhachi, right, there's kind of, again, this is less moral maybe, but maybe slightly moral too. If you're playing and you're always looking at and analyzing your sound and trying to fix it, it becomes more frustrating. Have you ever experienced this, right? Oh, my embouchure is wrong. Let me think about my embouchure. Ah! And then you throw away the shakuhachi in frustration, right? Trying to craft your sound into something kind of doesn't work, and it actually kind of makes it worse. Or you have this idea of what a beautiful sound is supposed to be. And maybe you end up making a very beautiful sound. And you're entertaining people, but all the while your heart is sitting there kind of rotting because you haven't found your sound. You're just playing somebody else's sound. And it's not a true sound. It's not your sound. And it doesn't really have any positive effect on your life as far as kind of using shakuhachi for prayer or meditation goes. So if you're taking your sound as an object and trying to manipulate it in a certain way, it's not really going to do anything. And chances are it'll result in frustration and it'll get worse. So what do you do? Well, he says, well, there is no thing, right? So forget about your sound being an object or something to look at. In fact, just forget about it altogether. Dogen also said this. He's a Japanese Zen master, and he wrote that to study Buddhism is to study the self, and to study the self is to forget the self. Again, this is something that a Christian can agree with, I think, because we are taught to find something better to look at. Consider others more important than yourself, for example, Paul wrote, right? Or let us fix our eyes on Christ, the author and perfecter of our faith. We look at him. We don't spend time staring at ourselves. That does no good, right? You actually find yourself by losing yourself. Lao Tzu said it, right? That and again, Christ said it even more effectively, I think. Whoever is last will be first. Whoever tries to save his own life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will gain it to eternal life, right? So we have all these ideas of not being focused on yourself, kind of actually forgetting about yourself, and that almost paradoxically being the thing that allows you to live as truly yourself. So in shakuhachi, this means just playing honestly. I think it just means just like I want to pray honestly and not hide anything. You play that way too, and maybe your sound isn't perfect, but that's actually the only way to grow, is to let yourself be exposed to the light. It's interestingly, just this morning I was reading this, and I'd like to read it to you here. This is from Saint Theophilus, and he used almost the same metaphor, right? And let's see, this is what he says. A person's soul should be clean, like a mirror reflecting light. If there's rust on the mirror, his face cannot be seen in it. In the same way, no one who has sin within him can see God. Right, and that's true. That's accurate. But it almost sounds like Shan Xiu's poem, right? The body's a poetry, the mind a bright mirror stand, always strive to wipe it clean. But what he doesn't say is you need to wipe it clean. He doesn't say that. St. Theophilus goes on to say, but if you will, you can be healed. Hand yourself over to the doctor, and he will open the eyes of your mind and heart. Who is to be the doctor? It is God, who heals and gives life through his word and wisdom. Right? So the idea is kind of just like we're saying here. You can't wipe it, you can't clean it yourself. You should notice it, and that is the truth of what Shan Xiu did. But the truth of what Huineng notices, that you can't really do anything about it yourself. So let go, play honestly, and allow yourself to be changed. Right? And in a sense, even, faith issues aside, I think that if you're playing shakuhachi and you just kind of enjoy it and find the things that feel good and notice it when it resonates and just kind of enjoy that, and don't worry about it when it doesn't make a sound. By and by, you find yourself making sounds that you like more and more. However, so this is what we're talking about, right? Like Mu Ichi Motsu. The state of Mu Ichi Motsu is not analyzing your sound, but actually just playing without the critical mind, playing without your sound being an object, right? Letting that kind of be transparent and just playing whatever's in here, whether it's good or bad, just that's all you got. Your sound is your sound, so you got to use it. All right, so let's go back though to Hisamatsu Fuyo's saying here. what does he say? For those who reach the state, or who can play with the state of Mu Ichi Motsu, Honrai Mu Ichi Motsu, if the listener finds it sorrowful, it becomes even more sorrowful. If joyful, even more joyful. So when I first read this, I thought he was saying that, well, it's all with the listener completely. So it's the listener's feelings that he's talking about. If the listener feels sad when he hears the sound, he'll feel more sad. And if the listener is joyful when he hears the sound, he'll feel more joyful. But I want to say, actually, from my own experience, it's more that if you're not caught up in yourself, and if your heart is settled and you're just playing, your ears will be open for other people. And if there's somebody else there, I don't mean somebody who's just hearing it, but somebody who's actually listening, right? So there's an active kind of reception of your sound. When your sound is being received by someone, it does sort of change the atmosphere. And you can start to resonate with what they're feeling. And you might actually start to feel that yourself, right? And anybody who has experienced empathy with somebody who is genuinely, if my kids are just like, one of my daughters had a dance recital and she was really happy afterwards, and it makes me happy, right? Because she was enjoying doing this thing that she's created to be good at, and it's just so happy to see her doing that and to see her enjoying that, right? Or if somebody is going through something and it's not just a fake feeling, like they're genuinely sad, and you can empathize with that and just feel that with them, right? This can happen. So this can happen in your playing too. And when somebody is feeling it that way, you kind of start to feel it yourself as well. I have a feeling that that's more what he was talking about, right? So if the listener finds it sorrowful, it becomes even more sorrowful because your own sorrow is joined with theirs. This makes sense in a lot of ways, right? There was something else that, I lost it. Maybe I'll come back to it. There's something else that I thought of that kind of related to this, but right. So Priest Fouquet's poem, right? Myoto Rai Myoto Da. And this is the sort of shakuhachi patriarch, even though he didn't play shakuhachi, and even though the story was made up, he would say, "Come bright and I'm bright, come dark and I'm dark." Brightness and darkness being kind of like yin and yang, so comprising all of existence, right? If you are Honrai Mu Ichi Motsu, if you are living connected to eternal life, right? If you're fully present in what you're doing, then you have room to receive people just as they are, right? And this completely resonates with that, right? And this is taken sort of as a shakuhachi mantra, right? To be in this state so that you're empty of yourself and you have room for others to accept them exactly as they are. And if you can do that, you may find yourself kind of resonating with them. I think that's what this is talking about. So anyway, so again, he says, sorrow and joy lie not with the player, but with the listener. This must not be doubted. Right? So what is his point here? I think his point is that you're not playing it as meditation music. It doesn't always have to have this feeling of sorrow to it. That might be part of it, but it's not like you're playing to evoke this sense of sorrow all the time. There may be something deeper though, and I might call it longing, right? And that's something that can be both joyful and sorrowful, right? And longing for God's love. It's a longing that can always be fulfilled at the same time too. And there does seem to be some of that in shakuhachi, but it doesn't have to be sorrowful. However, when that connects with somebody who is truly listening, that can change the character of the music. I also have a sense that the listener can also be you. When you're playing, you're not trying to create anything. But if you are listening deeply to your own sound, you may find, just as you're listening, there's something you're feeling that you weren't even aware of before. Or it may be a person who you're praying for. There might be some kind of concerns that are on your heart that you weren't aware of until you started listening, right? And as these kind of leak into your playing might change. It's not that you're trying to produce this, but it's actually as you're listening, you start to connect with yourself, and that changes the way you play. So when you can play as in that state of Honrai Mu Ichi Motsu, right? Just honestly and directly, when you can be fully present to your playing, it changes the way you play. There's sort of a vitality to it, right? I don't always play that way. I like to play that way.